we move now to issues of data, issues of privacy. Now, they say the world's most valuable commodity is no longer oil, but data. Companies are spending millions for valuable personal information. Data is now collected, it's being sold and used by large corporations. But you have rights, and your personal information has to be protected. You can ask for proof of written consent for your data to have been shared. Let's discuss the legalities as well as the ethics of this with Pieter le Roux from Altron Karabina. A very good morning to you, Pieter. Now, the issue of privacy is very close to the consumer's hearts. But do people know that they actually have a right to decide who gets their information and how their personal information is actually going to be used?
Good morning, Gareth and Sydney. Yes, absolutely. Information has become one of the biggest commodities worldwide. And yes, as a user, as an individual, we absolutely have rights that are protected by the POPIA Act. And most of the time, we're not aware of these. The right to give the information, the right to ask how it's been obtained, the right to ask how it's being protected, the right to deny supplying of information.
So how then, Pieter, can you actually oversee how your information, if for example, you say to somebody, don't use my information, don't give it out, how are you as a consumer able to track whether or not the business will keep their end of the bargain?
That's one of the difficult questions. We don't know when our information is being used or how it's being used or how it's being distributed. But as individuals, we have to be very aware of when we provide information, what it's going to be used for, what's the purpose of this information, and not just supply the information. We all know about the criminal effect that's going out worldwide about asking for information, but we have to be absolutely aware when we provide our information. And remember that by providing information, we are implicitly giving permission for that information to be held and stored.
You speak about issues of ethics when it comes to data sharing and information. What exactly do you mean by that? What are the ethical considerations here?
So our ethical obligation when we start collecting information is we've got to be very clear on why we want the information, what we are going to do with that information, and what information do we need. You know, a simple example is we all drive into states or go visit friends or go to an office park, and there's that white book that gets passed to the window, and you have to provide your ID number, your first name, your surname, your email address, your car registration, your licenses get scanned, your card disc gets scanned. Why is all that information required? It's not necessary to ask for information that is not relevant to the purpose of what it's going to be used. And the ethical side of that becomes a conundrum, because what are we doing with this information? Why do we need all this information? How do we safeguard that information once it's being kept? And I'm going back to that example of using that white book that you fill in all your details. How is it being stored? How often have you arrived at a gate, the security guard is not there, and the book is just lying there? It's very easy to take a photograph with your cell phone. Everyone uses those nowadays. And then that information becomes very available and very usable. So the ethical side is not just what do we need, it's how do we protect it, and how do you make sure that it's not going to become public domain?
Pieter, the issues that you raise are so commonplace because we can all relate to entering an estate or entering an office park, and they take everything as far as your ID is concerned, your driver's license, your phone numbers, your home address. Literally, you are so easily trackable by anybody who wants to find out who you are and use your details. But then there's the other side of it. If you do want to access those premises, they're not going to let you in unless you give them all the information that you need. So how then do you circumvent that situation where you get what you want and have your information protected, and they get whatever they need to fulfill whatever security measures that they need to fulfill, but it's a win-win situation?
So certainly the right of admission can be denied if you do not provide the information. What you as an individual have to be very aware about and concerned about is what information are you going to provide. You don't have to provide your shoe size and your blood sample to get access into an estate. You need the person that you're going to visit or see. They need your car registration, and they probably need your driver's license to make sure that your ID number matches who you are. But be careful to just complete information that's not required. They don't need your email address to get access to an estate. So be careful and limit what you do. And again, this is where the ethical side of the discussion comes into play. When we are managing estates or office parks or access to an environment, we need to make sure that we ask the right questions to allow people to have that win-win situation. Yes, I need to know who you are, who you're going to be visiting, but I don't need all the other superfluous information around your identity.
So, Pieter, would biometrics and the use of technology actually help in this regard? Because all they do is really just scan your eyes or maybe take a fingerprint, but all your other details remain in your possession.
That is a perfect example. I actually recently visited on a weekend away, I visited an estate that we booked a place in, and the estate managers were very good at how they managed access. When the booking was done, I received the PIN via WhatsApp. I got to the gate, typed in the PIN, and access was granted. Now, that's a way of simplifying it. Yes, you can go to biometrics, you can scan fingerprints, but a fingerprint is connected to your identity, which is connected to your ID number, which is connected to all the information. So from a corporate or a business or an estate perspective, the ethical side is to provide access in a way that they can confirm in a secure way that this is in fact you and not someone else getting access to that environment. So the example of sending me a PIN via WhatsApp to say, I have your telephone number, which matches your booking, here is your access code. That's a very easy way of dealing with access in a more ethical way.
Before I let you go, Pieter, do you believe that the POPI Act is effective? And if not, what needs to be amended in order for it to fulfill its role while protecting, obviously, what it's supposed to do, the information and I guess the integrity of the person?
Certainly, the POPI Act is very, very relevant. It is very effective, but it is only as good as the awareness and the enforcement levels around it. And it's not just an awareness from a corporate perspective, it is also awareness from us as end users, as individuals. And we know that recently there's been a number of breaches where the POPI Act has been enforced and large corporates have actually received fines. So the effectiveness is now coming into play, and people are actually sitting up and taking notice. This is no longer just a game. It is now being enforced.
It's no longer just a game. It's now being enforced. The parting words from Pieter le Roux. Thank you so much for your time this morning. That is Pieter le Roux, Altron Karabina, and talking there about consumer rights and data privacy. I must say, Gareth, I mean, I know wherever you go, you always have to give in your information. I actually know people who have a secondary phone that is not their own private personal phone that they can give out to, you know, general people, so that you don't have people stalking you and you don't have people who are going to be
like
calling
a burner
you.
phone.
A what phone?
Like a burner phone.
A burner phone, yes,
burner
exactly. Just to make sure you still, you know, preserve your privacy, but you give them what they need, but it's really not going to affect or inconvenience your life.
Yeah. I would just like to know how it is that under this POPI Act as well, why it is that we're still getting so many of these call centres phoning in, despite the fact you seem to follow their process, you deregister, you still get them all the time. I always find every time you take out a new product or you sign up for a new email or something, I always tend to get bombarded with something like that. Maybe one day we can do a chat about that. That drives me mad. I actually ignore half the calls that ring on my phone. So if you try to phone me and I haven't answered, sorry. It's not that I don't like you, I probably don't, but I'm also not going to answer the phone. You want to sell me something.
Yeah, but you can call me and I'll give you his other number.
No, don't do that. No. It's, no.